Welcome to New Tracks Workshop. My name is Jim Kello. I'm the creator and host for New Tracks, where mentors help modelers build. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you come back often and tell your friends about our show. These Saturday workshops are a new project for New Tracks. They've resulted from comments I've received from modelers about Scratchbuilding and Chris Blackmar's interest in producing and leading this effort. The segments are structured like the popular build-along segments on our Wednesday evening shows, except these Saturday shows are designed to show modelers how to scratch build a model. I personally believe that scratch building is one of the most creative parts of model railroading, and I think you'll agree if you try it. Here is your opportunity to work with some skilled modelers to learn how to do it. You will learn the steps, the skills, the techniques involved in scratch building a model in any scale you want. There are no kits to buy, only the needed scratch building supplies. The plans that will be used for the model, you can download on your computer at no cost. The show's moderator, Chris Blackmar, is a very talented and artistic modeler, and he and his guest will guide you through the complete scratch building process, one small step at a time. After all, that's what mentoring is all about. If you're a beginner, I hope you'll join in and experience the thrill of completing a scratch-built model and being able to stand back and say, I built that. If you're a more experienced or advanced modeler, I hope you'll join in and offer your advice and knowledge to less skilled modelers, and even get some fresh ideas yourself. The live shows will, of course, be recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can refer to the information later if you need to. In addition, I hope you'll visit our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and subscribe. You'll need to confirm the email that you received to verify your address. And after that, you'll receive all of the notice of our future shows, as well as the login links to attend. If you would prefer to watch the series on YouTube, you can do that by going to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, ring the bell, and click all. Therefore, you'll get all of the notice for the start of all of our future shows on the channel. If you can spare a little time, I hope you'll consider joining our management team to help us plan and produce any of our future shows. Please contact me at jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com, and let's discuss your interest. So welcome to the New Tracks Workshop. I look forward to seeing your finished models and, of course, hearing any suggestions for future shows you may have. Now, here is Chris Blackmar to start your scratch building journey.
All right, everybody, welcome, and pull up your coffee, your soda, or whatever thing you may be drinking for the next 90 minutes or so, and join us in this week's show. As always, before we kick off the show real quick here, I'd like to have an invocation. And Father Ron is the gentleman who always does it. And Father, if you'll give us my favorite prayer.
Oh God, as we express our creativity by creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. And with that, we're kind of kicking off the show. And as usual, we always start off with a few announcements and a few other tidbits on what's going on with the New Tracks channel. And with that, I'm going to have Jim Kello, who's the host of New Tracks, give us a few words about the new productions that he's working on.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thanks everybody for joining Chris in the show this afternoon. On Thursday evening, June the 16th, we're going to air our next modeling lifestyle show. This is a new show for New Tracks. We've had one on June the 2nd with Alan Littlefield. It's recorded on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. If you missed it, you really ought to take a look at it. This one coming up on the 16th of June at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The only way that you can watch it is on our YouTube channel. You can use the chat function to discuss things with the modeler. And the modeler for June the 16th is Howard Zane. Howard, I'm sure you may know, is not only an excellent modeler, has one absolutely gorgeous, huge model railroad, makes some beautiful cars and passenger equipment particularly, and is the person who started years ago the great scale model train show that you may know by the name of the Timonium Show. So to be able to hear how Howard started it, why he started it, and where it is today, and to be able to talk to him and hear him discuss with you his modeling and how he does it, and see some of the modeling and hear some of his friends talk to him about their experience with Howard, I think is something that a lot of modelers will want to participate in. I certainly hope so. If you've ever wanted to sit down with a modeler like John Allen, Howard is awfully close to being able to do that. Once you see some of his modeling, you'll see where he got some of his incentives to do the kinds of things that he does. So I hope that you'll join us for that. Also, we have a new marketing person, Sally Dando, who is going to handle the marketing now for all of New Tracks. And I must say, I can't thank her enough for volunteering. Sally is an experienced modeler. She's a member of the Piedmont division of the Southeast region of the NMRA. And she's been involved with helping them with their marketing and with their programs. She's also the chairman of the upcoming regional convention for the SER. So she has a world of experience, and I'm really looking forward to what she's going to be able to do to help the marketing part of our New Tracks programs. She needs a lot of help. So whether you have marketing experience or not, if you can think that you might be able to help her in some of the efforts that she's going to be developing, please contact me and I'll put you in touch with her. My email is Jim Kellow, JIMKELLOW at newtracksmodeling.com. And if you'll send me an email with your name on it or with your email, then I'll put you in touch with Sally. I know that she would appreciate it and she can use all the help she can get right now. I also want to talk to Chris about possibly some things that he might add to the show. One of them is scratch building tips. That's become very popular, the modeling tips for the other shows that we do. And I think it could be awfully possible for scratch builders. There's an awful lot of items that model railroaders don't normally think of when they think of scratch building, that a lot of scratch builders are using and rely on. And I think if we have somebody that would like to spearhead that kind of a segment, it doesn't have to be a long segment. It can be 5 minutes or something like that. But talk about the different materials that may be unique for a lot of modelers that people are using in scratch building. I think that could be a great segment for the show. I also think that you might have a segment, maybe once a month, to allow the viewers to show their scratch building projects, much like we do on the Wednesday night show once a month that we call My Build. I think it's extremely important for other modelers to see what modelers are doing with their scratch building. There's all kinds of scratch building. It doesn't have to be a complete project. It can be part of a project. It can be a model that might be 50% scratch built, 40%, 30%, 70%. It doesn't have to have 100% scratch building elements in order to be called scratch building. And I think to be able to exhibit those and have the modelers who are the viewers of the show be able to participate once a month on having that kind of a series, the same as we do for the My Builds on the other show, I think could be really beneficial to people that are interested in learning how to build scratch building. So with that said, I'll turn it back to you, Chris, and hope you have a great show this afternoon.
Thank you, Jim. And we'll go on ahead and run that video here. I think you wanted to run the video on the
Lifestyle, yes.
Yeah, the lifestyle. So if we'll go on ahead and run that, Will, please.
Welcome to the Modeling Lifestyle, where we celebrate how modelers have embraced their modeling and friendships as a lifestyle. We discuss how modeling can become a life passion and lead to lifelong friendships. The goal of the modeling lifestyle is to preserve the modeling and interests of leading modelers in the modeling industry. The modeling lifestyle is sponsored by NGMC, who believes that through bringing hobbyists together with both information and modeling, the hobby will grow stronger with more model builders than ever. NGMC, which started as Narrow Gauge Modeling Company, is focused in 1/4 inch scale across hobbies. NGMC is a market leader in 1/4 inch scale with a range of products from over 50 vendors. In 2021, NGMC became the largest reseller of out-of-production model paint in North America with over 9,000 bottles in stock. And now to Jim Kello, MMR, host of the Modeling Lifestyle.
I love the sound of a whistle.
And Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to add or say?
No, that's fine. Thank you so much for the opportunity and have a great show, Chris.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. Well, let's move forward then with this. And the next thing that I wanted to go through was number one, let you know that today's show is going to be focused on roofing types and the application of roofing types. We've got a couple of people that are going to be coming in and adding their comments, thoughts, and techniques and things to that. But as usual, I wanted to first announce for those of you on YouTube, if you're live on the YouTube show, we do have a couple of folks monitoring the YouTube. So if you have a question, comment, or a thought, please feel free to type it in and we'll try to get it addressed during the show here live. The next thing that I wanted to bring up was that if you have a model that you wanted to discuss or a modeling issue, please feel free to bring that up. And if you are working on a My Build model and you have a question or you're having some thoughts about something, certainly feel free to bring that up to us and we'll try to get it addressed here. I have a wealth of modeling expertise standing behind me who can give you input and suggestions on that if we can't get it answered directly for you immediately.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Ken mentioned on YouTube that Jim failed to mention the upcoming Wednesday show, that we're supposed to have a giveaway for that show.
Oh, okay. Jim, I think you're still on.
We have a door prize for the Wednesday show. You have to be present to win on either Zoom or YouTube. When your name is announced as the winner, you need to send me an email, as well as if you're on either Zoom or YouTube, you need to respond in the chat function to let us know that you're there. And then you need to send me an email with your mailing address so we can send you the prize. The prize is a Loco-Fi control system for a locomotive. And we have the people from Loco-Fi on the show Wednesday night. And as part of their presentation, they're going to give away one of their control units. So I encourage you to attend the Wednesday show and try to win it. Thank you, Chris. And
Okay.
thank you, Ken, for mentioning it. And while I'm talking here, Gary, if you could send me an email, I would really like to ask you a question. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's try to get this show kicked off today. The next thing I wanted to discuss real quick was the kind of the products session of it. For those of you that, if we focus on my desktop, are aware, I last week talked about these little eye cups. They're medicine cups for eyes that we used to utilize in the medical field. They have a real deep indentation here on this end, and they're very small compared to a tea light candle holder, which you can see that I can put these things in them. But the advantage to these things is that they're glass, and not only can you put a small amount of paint or something in them, but if you're using a super glue, you can throw it on the bottom side of this thing and use that to decant your super glue out using the super glue applicator that you may be using of your choice. So that kind of takes care of the first one from last week that I wanted to follow up on. I told you I was going to order a couple and make sure of the dip on the bottom of those. And I got those off of Amazon. And yes, they are the correct ones that have that big dip in the bottom. So I'll get that posted onto our website underneath the resources if you're interested in that product. Those two of them were $7, by the way. The other item from last week that I wanted to follow up on was I brought up the coral pinkish fading techniques that you can get with the ruby red matter oil paints from Winsor Newton. This is a new pigment color that they were coming out with. And I had a question to Winsor Newton if they were going to present those in a acrylic format. And basically they got back to me and said that the acrylic and the gouache formats, they are not planning on doing at this point. So if you're after that coral colored pinkish fading in your streaking techniques or in your rusting techniques where you don't want the browns, which would be more on the outsides or not as far down as the pinkish red colors, that is going to have to be done in oils at this point in time. So we are kind of limited to the oil paint application. And with that, I wanted to bring up Ralph Renzetti is not on right now, but Ralph last week, about 3/4 of the way through the show, brought up a point about oil paints and using terps and dull coats and a few things. And he was trying to correct something that I said. And he was when I went back and we rewatched the show, I caught that I, for some reason, went down a rabbit hole that for acrylics and got focused on that, using that technique for the white on the outside of your rusting and things. But Ralph was absolutely correct. So if you go back and watch last week's show, or if you're referencing some of the weathering information from last week's show, please realize that what I was talking about had to do with acrylics, and Ralph was absolutely 100% correct in what he said about using mineral spirits and terps and things like that. I just wanted to make sure that we got that correction in there, because when I went back and looked at it, it was a little bit confusing. As far as new products that I wanted to bring up to everybody for this week, there's a new package of silver white brushes, which all of you who follow me know that I use the silver white brushes extensively. These brushes are used on gouaches, acrylics, or oils. You can use them for watercolors too. And they're really good, but they have a series of ultra mini brushes. If you don't want to get your ultra minis, which are from Micro Mart, like these, you can get the silver whites, which are of a higher quality than what you would get from the Micro Mart brushes. And they're running for 4 brushes, like $31. If you really have a few dollars that you really want to buy a full set of mini brushes, they do have a package of 29 count mini brushes, and it's got everything from fans to the angled brushes in it. And those are minis and ultra minis, but that's about $200 for that 29 pack count of mini brushes. So that was the thing on the brushes. If you're interested, the big thing is that $32 for the 4 set of mini brushes. The reason that I'm really kind of harping on this one and I'm bringing it to your attention is that mini brushes hold such a minute volume of paint that by the time you can get from the paint lid or wherever you're dabbing your paint to the model to get situated to do it, you often run out of paint in there because it dries or evaporates. And so you're almost using dry brushing. With a little bit higher quality brush, you'll have more time to get the paint properly applied. And it's not real important in the castings, in the structures that we're doing right now. But when we get down into castings and things of that nature, it becomes extremely important. The other thing I wanted to bring up for next week is we're going to be covering things like chimneys and other castings like roof jacks and things like that. And the seams going around them, or the seams going through joints along eaves and gutters and valleys in the roofs, around roof hips. And those we'll be covering next week. So if those of you out there on the show that kind of are regulars and more advanced modelers, if you can kind of plan on presenting a few of your tips or ideas on that, that would really be helpful. I'm going to be looking at 2 products next week. One will be gallery glass liquid leading. If those folks are at all interested in ordering that, it's about $17 off of Amazon. The other thing we'll take a look at on down the road here, but we're getting into it around the castings for smoke jacks and stuff, is a silver stencil paint. Excuse me. And both of those products can be ordered from Amazon, and that'd give you a $25 order, so you can get free shipping on everything between those 2 products. And we'll be looking at those here in the next 2 weeks or so. And with that, let's go on ahead and focus in on the other issue of where we're going today. And today we're going to look at roofing and roofing types and roofing styles. So I'm going to move my computer here a little bit. There's all sorts of roofing types and things that we can look at. And we can look at, roofs that are board and batten like this one that I'm kind of focused on right now. This is an HO scale. And here I've got some applications of some pastels along with inks to do the coloring of this roof. The other thing that this has is a rolled paper roofing. And the thing that I wanted to bring in about rolled paper roofing is twofold. Number one, notice that in here I've got fairly sharp edges compared to that to something like down here where I've got a larger edge, or down here where I've got a larger shadow. And over here you can see a couple of other, like here, a larger shadow right in here, this one. Getting those different edges and things to show up is one of those fine nuances of roofing that I wanted to take a real quick look at. These fine shadow edges like this one up here, that's done in my case here with a charcoal stick. You can just run a charcoal stick over it and that'll color the edge of the paper and give you a nice clean edge. If you use something more like the ink pens or something like that, the markers, then you'll get this more of a bleeding effect, which gives you this type of shadow. So you can see on this the two different types of shadows. The other thing that I wanted to bring up here is always feel free to mix your roofing types. If you'll notice, all of this goes across this way. But if I come down to this one, you'll notice that my roofing now goes this way. And so there's nothing in the world that says you have to do it one way or the other way. Either way here, you can do it either the horizontal or the vertical, and they'll both go along equally well. So that's just a couple of things to kind of think about when you're applying rolled roofing paper, and a couple of quick tips on that one. So with that, I'm going to go on ahead and turn it over to, let's go to, I was going to have Pat Rivard on, but Pat's gone today. And so Gary is going to go on ahead and cover for Pat and bring in his things here. And Gary, for the life of me, all of a sudden your last name just disappeared out of my little memory banks. I'm sorry. So I think you're still muted, Gary. Sure, Golden. So take it away, Gary. I'm going to shut up and let you talk for a few minutes.
No problem at all. Okay, if we can have the first slide. The slide here is showing the roof trusses that Pat uses. Pat was in the lumber business, and he's got quite a good knowledge of trusses. And what he does, he pre-makes his trusses or support of the roof material that covers it. This is showing one of the roof trusses with the steel gussets. The next slide.
Before we leave that one, do you know how he got I think they call it a bird peak or a bird bill or something like that, edge on that, how he cut those in? Does he use a jig or what?
This is all done by hand. He has a little chop saw, and when he does his, he doesn't use a jig. Everything is done by he makes up a little plan and then follows that little plan. So those little bird detail on the ends, he just puts them in with a knife. This is showing some of the tools he uses. He uses a knife, and all his wood is pre-stained. His little gussets that he put on, the steel gussets, that's thin, like very thin cardstock. And he pre-stains them a metal color, and they'll be, once they're put up, he takes them and weathers them slightly with some weathering.
Okay, and I'm still kind of focused on that bird peak going up over the corner of the top edge of the roof there. Because that's something that I know a lot of people fight, myself included. Do you know if he uses a number 11 blade, or does he use a straight edge razor blade, or does he use a number 17 blade to make that fine little cut? I'm primarily thinking of the HO folks, because I know he works an O scale, but I know the HO folks fight that one.
Yeah, he uses that the knife on there to the right of
Okay.
the truss, and it's just a regular blade,
Okay, so that's a number 11 exacto.
11 blade, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, the next photo is this is a roof of styrene, and what he has done is to brace the roof from warping, he's put long strips across. You see one in the at the peak, and then two on each end. And then he does the imitation rafters that he puts on the end. He doesn't put full rafters, but so that when that goes on the building, the roof's made of Moonite material. Now, I have no idea what Moonite material is. I think it's a kind of cardstock with the rafter tails and the edge and long supports of wood to prevent warping. Next slide. Now, this is the building, and what he has done is weathered it, painted and weathered. And it's the corrugated styrene roof that has been weathered with latex paint, and he's rusted it. Next slide.
Do you know if on the rusting on that, if he used pastels, or did he use paint pigments, or did he just use some other product like a MIG product?
Yeah, he uses the pastels with the alcohol, and what he
Okay.
does, he mixes his pastels in the alcohol, and then basically what he does, he has a dry powder, and he dips his brush into the alcohol, and then takes a little bit of the pigment and makes sort of a slurry of it, and then he applies that to the roof.
Okay, so underneath that, he uses a base coating of a latex or a primer, or do you know?
Yeah, the base coat is the base coat is latex paint.
A
And he
latex.
paints the roof one color, which would be silver. And then he takes his weathering materials and weathers the roof up.
Okay, and that roof is, it looks like it's a square corrugated type roofing. Do you know if that was done individually, or is that a sheet stock type thing?
That's a sheet style that he has on this material he uses.
Okay. I'm sorry to keep going into some of the
No,
details.
no problem.
I'm trying to
No.
understand some of the details in the roofing here, because it's real important that we share this information to the folks.
No, I
on it.
understand.
And also I was noticing here on the roof peak, it looks like he's still got a gap here. So we'll, in the future photos, look to see how he addressed that. So, okay.
Okay, next photo. Okay, this is the building that the roof fits on. And what he's done is from right to left, he's put a support beam on that'll support the upper part or the roof itself on the building. Next
Chris,
photo.
can I say something?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to tell whoever is watching. One of the projects that I built, I used a styrene backing for the roof. It was pretty big. It was like close to a foot long. And I figured it was pretty thick styrene. I didn't need any wood attached under to keep it straight. And I'll be darned. Within 3 or 4 months, as the weather changed, the styrene started buckling. So I'm just letting everybody know that just because it's styrene, which I didn't think would warp, you still need to have some pieces of wood under keeping it tight. And so when the weather changes, it doesn't wobble around.
Okay. And Neil, you work in HO scale, correct?
Yes, that's so.
Okay. Roughly the length of that roof, was that like a 20 foot, a 40 foot in length? Trying to get an idea for the size of sheet.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Styrene
think.
sheet.
I'm talking about full, regular, just if you measure, you go inside and you measure the roof, it's close to about 8 or 9 inches long.
Oh,
And
okay.
about 5 inches wide on each side,
Okay.
5
Okay.
or 6 inches. And
Okay.
the strange thing was, once it warped, I put it in the freezer and it undid the warp. So very, very strange experience with it. Now I know I need thick pieces of wood underneath it to keep the glue on the top from getting drying up and pulling on it.
Okay. So we're talking like a 40, on the short side, a 35-foot scale roof, roughly.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, thank you. That's good information because I've never experienced warping with my styrene, but I don't usually make bigger roofs with it. So that's real good input.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, those of you who, I don't know if, Chris, I know you've looked at my railroad line models, but it was the one with it's a gantry crane, and there's the kit bash made out of Superior bakeries. So
Okay.
that's the one on my site if you want to get a better measurement of it, but it's pretty long. It's the largest structure I've ever built.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's just, everybody typically thinks of styrene's not going to buckle at all or warp at all. And so that's really good input at this point. So, okay, Gary, I'm sorry to get distracted there, but that was good input.
No, it's quite all right. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the Pat's planing mill that he's worked on. This is all scratch built, and it shows the roof on this building. The roof is done with veneer shingles. Pat takes a sheet of veneer and individually cuts every shingle to all different sizes. Each shingle is, and then each shingle is individually applied. Now I've seen this building. It's quite large. For him to sit there, he must spend hours putting these shingles on because each one is individually applied. Next photo.
On his shingles, if he stains the shingles before application by bulk staining them, or does he wait and apply them and then come back and stain them?
All his shingles are pre-stained.
Okay. Okay.
Now, this photo showing the planing mill with the roof lifted off. And you can see earlier you saw the rafters. And now you can see, if you look underneath, you can see where he's applied all the rafters for the support underneath that roof. Also, the roofing material itself that the shingles sit on are individual lengths of board. Next slide. Now, this is just an example of a roof. He put this on one of the small buildings he was working on, but just shows you can see the individually cut shakes in the background there, and then you can see them applied onto the roof. No, he applies all his shakes with goo, Walter's goo. Now here's an example of when he cuts his shakes, he has individual sizes, puts them into a container, and then randomly picks them and as he's putting them onto his building. This way he gets a variety of when you look at the finished product. And that's it for that type.
And again, that's O scale.
That's O scale, yes.
Okay, okay.
The next set of slides. Okay, this set of slides here is HO scale. The building is 105 feet long, HO, by 70 feet wide. It's the roof on my scratch-built engine house. It's a two-stall engine house with a large work area off to the one side. And the rafter, or the roof itself, was attached to the rafters using long lengths of scribe siding. Now, at one time, I don't know if you can still get it, but we could buy scribe siding in about 2.5 foot lengths. So I have a number of it. And when I was building this roof, that's what I used, so that when you look on the under part of the roof, you can see the actual individual boards. The small roof is the roof that fits onto the upper vent portion of the roof, which is on the top of the photograph to the right. And the roof that covers it is on the bottom in the center. Next slide.
Before we leave that slide,
Sure.
or this one, either one, on the cupola vent, as you're calling it here, it's got some vents cut in the side. And this is something that we're going to be getting into on down the road, but it's coming up in 3 or 4 shows. And so I wanted to bring this up in case somebody's looking at it right now. That cupola, the vents that you did there have little slots. How did you do those? Can you describe that briefly? I know I'm catching you out of sequence here. And
No problem at all. Yeah, the framework for the vent was built. It's like a rectangular box. And then what I did was took individual boards and glued them on an angle so that when the vent portion goes on the roof, they're on a slight angle down. And there was nothing fancy. It was just get them in position, space them properly, and then glue them on.
Okay, the spacing properly, did you use like a piece of 2x2 or something, square 2x2 to keep them all spaced the same, or did you have any techniques that you utilized on that?
I just used on the side, you can see the little framing on the, I don't know how to explain this. There's on the end portion and the center portion is a piece of wood that goes down, and I marked on an angle on each end of the vertical posts, marks where I wanted the individual boards to fit onto.
Okay,
And so that kept the angle, that kept everything even, and the angle at a proper angle.
okay. And the board size there is roughly a 2x4 or 2x6?
They would have been I think I did a 2x4.
Okay,
Yeah, they'd be 2x4s.
okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the digression here. It's
Hey,
just
no,
that
no problem.
you hit a thing that we're coming up to that I know that people are going to be wrestling with potentially. Okay,
Right. Now you can also see on this shot here, the one side of the building, there's the overhang there. That's all done with Campbell's steel siding, and it's been lately weathered. Since being on the program, Chris has taught me a better way of weathering, and this roof is going to get redone. So there'll be a weathering a little more on the roof. Next slide. Okay, this is looking down on the roof. There you can see the vent section that was put in, and the vent itself is on the top. Now, the roofing material is file cardstock. This is just ordinary files. They happen to be a yellow color when I obtained them. And what I had done was taken pinking shears and cut lengths and lengths and lengths of the material. It represents a slate roof. So if you can see that they're individually glued on lengths, and it took a little while to do it, but it is an impressive roof on the building. Next slide. Okay, that's showing the roof with the vent section attached to it.
on when you applied all of those shingles, I've got a question here because, man, that had to be really, that's incredible work. But did you use guidelines, or did you just rely on the interlocking of the various pieces together to keep that multitude of strips going straight across?
Okay, on the next slide, you're going to see how I did this.
Oh, okay.
What it is you take the leading edge of your material that you're going to put it on, as you can see here with the blue. So you line that up so it slightly hangs over the edge of your roof. Then you take your next section and you make sure that the peaks of every one of those tiles lines up with the valley of the piece that you're gluing it to. And you just keep on repeating this. And you just, like this roof was quite large, and it did take a while to finish, but with the process is simple. And all it is just keep going.
Okay.
And this
Okay.
is the you can see, I didn't do a whole bunch. I just did enough that I could demonstrate. You have the blue, the other is penciled in for the next section where you can see the peaks are in the valleys. And
Right.
then you just repeat that continuously.
Hey,
Okay.
Gary, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
What brand of shingles are those?
They're not a brand. You take pinking shears. Now you
Oh,
can,
okay.
you can buy pinking shears that are angled like this, and they're also round. And there are.
I have a package. I have a
It's a-
package from Branch Line Trains, and they were laser art diamond shingles. They look like this.
Okay. This is much
Oh,
cheaper
okay.
because all you have to do is get a pair of pinking shears, some file folders that you don't need anymore, draw lines along them and follow the lines as you're cutting and just make your own.
I got you. Thank you.
And that ends the roofing.
Okay. Did you want to go back to that previous slide that we kind of cut you short on?
No problem.
Yeah, it's because I cut you short. I don't know if there was something there you wanted to say or not.
Which side was that?
It was two before the end, I think.
This
Yeah, I
one
think
here?
it was that one. Yeah, I think it was that one. And because I asked you if you were aligning them and then you went to the next slide. So I
Yeah,
kind of cut
like
you short.
you can see at the start, the edge of the roof. All those are slightly over the edge, not a whole bunch, just slightly. And then the next row is put on. So the peak goes into the valley. And all you do is just continuously, just keep that going continuously, one after another, until you get it done. And they work out
They look
really
very
good.
nice.
Yeah, they make a nice roof. Now, as I said, this roof is going to get weathered. Thanks to Chris in his previous shows. I've learned how to weather, and this roof will get weathered.
That's an incredible roofing job. That's all I've got to say. Okay, all right. Well, does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments, or anything else from Gary on this?
Yeah, Gary, beautiful job on that building. It was just incredible. I just
Thank
think
you.
all the detail, everything is precise in its place, and it's just beautiful work.
Thank you very much. What I'll do is in the future, I will highlight the building itself in my builds. The building that the roof sits on is a hydrocal castings that I made myself and had the windows laser cut, and all the doors on the front. It's a two-stall, so there's two entrances. They were all scratch built.
Gary, how long did it take you to complete that building?
Probably about 3 to 4 weeks. I didn't
Wow.
work on it 24/7, but
Whoa,
it
okay,
did take a long time.
great. If you have a second, let me show you. Can you focus on this? I use the same kind of roof. Now, this was a, let's see, can you get it in there? It's easier than you think to do this. Now, this is a very small roof. This is the old Atlas, I guess the watchtower, and it's an HO. It was, I modeled mine after George Celios. He won one of the monthly awards in Model Railroader. See if you can get it. And it really, it was well worth the time of doing it the way Gary had said. It really makes a spectacular roof. I redid my roof. It's not the roof that came with the kit. I gave it more of a Victorian type of shape, but it's really worth doing. And then I put pastels on it. That's what I used. But it really can make whatever you do, make it look much more detailed, complicated, and it really comes out well. But you got to do, as Gary said, you got to do it slowly. You can't rush it.
Yeah. One of the three things is, the modeling. It's called patience.
Patience.
One of those things that we all have to learn the hard way. So, okay.
One of the things I did, Chris, I just want to mention is when I put the cardstock on, it was just using the carpenter's glue
Okay.
on the back and then
Yellow
stick it.
or the yellow glue?
Yes,
Okay. So you were using a waterproof glue.
yeah, and you don't need a lot of it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Any other thoughts, comments? All right. And how are we doing on time?
We're pretty well at the top of the hour if you want to run the O-scale resource.
Let's take our middle of the show break here. And when we come back, we'll come back and discuss a few more tips of the trade that I have. And we'll also look at what Rich Wolfanger has in his presentation on how he addresses roofing in the HO scale. So Will, if you want to take it away, I'm going to disappear for just a moment.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
You're muted, Chris. And before you go on, if I can just add one little thing to your comment about yellow glue being waterproof. Just
Not
because
all
I do a bit of woodworking, and yes, typically yellow glue is often referred to as carpenter's glue or woodworking glue, but not all yellow glue is waterproof. Like if you're looking at Titebond, you've got Titebond 1, 2, and 3, all of which are yellow, but Titebond 1 is not at all waterproof. Titebond 2 is water resistant, and only Titebond 3 gets the waterproof moniker on the bottle. And even that is not 100% waterproof. But anyways, just being picky.
Good point and well taken. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So on that. So, all right. That's why I need you guys to keep me straight. Woohoo. All right. And with that, if we want to go on ahead and focus over on, well, before I do that, let me jump over here and I think it was, who was it? I'm sorry. Somebody wanted to say something here. Doug Sossman. Doug wanted to take just a brief moment and say something here. So I'm going to let Doug take it away, and we'll hold on here for just a second.
Okay, going back to last weekend, backing up a little bit, it all started by outspoken Neil when he was trying to talk, when you was showing your roof on your ice house. We were discussing the lopsidedness of the build or how the wall came up. And for some reason, I didn't hear Neil start talking, and I kept talking or something like that. And I want to apologize for interrupting such a great person, and also apologize to you for interrupting the show.
It's no apology, appreciate it, but it's not necessary. It's part of the Zoom environment that we live in, and we'll just take it at that and move forward. It's not that big a deal. We all survived, but thank you very much, and it's appreciated. Yeah, and
Well, it was to me. It was to me. My mother would have jumped out of the grave if I should have heard me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. All right. Well, with that, can we take a quick look at the pictures that I sent in to Will? I've got a few things that I wanted to talk about. These are more, I would say, almost not quite a quick tip, but I'll run into a quick tip with this. But I wanted to show something here to kind of emphasize what we're leading into. And with this one, this is a Sierra West scale model build that I did, but I wanted to point out from last week, we were talking the little bit of a crescent type of a cut that you can make in the roof peak board, and that'll give you kind of a sway back. I use that technique, just a very, very small slice out here to get that very, very mild sway back technique or sway back look on this roof. But I wanted to bring that out. Also on this roof, you can see the tar paper or the rolled roofing has a couple of different effects added to it. Again, it's got this one is primarily done with the edging with a felt tip marker. You can see where I kind of held the felt tip marker in a few places, such as on the second row up about a third of the way across, right above the left side of the window. You can see how that kind of bled a little bit and adds to that. The other thing is by using sandpaper, a little light touches of sandpaper coming down from the roof peak down to the bottom edge of the roof, you can get the white streaking effect, and that will kind of help you out a little bit. It lightens it. And you can't see it here, but I've got a old dead pine tree in the background that's probably about a 90-foot. It goes all the way up here. But that, because of where that old dead pine tree was coming down, that's why and also just on the flip side of this is a small smokestack. That's why on the left edge, you've got the soot coming down. But you need to think about those type of things when you're doing your roofing. The other thing that this doesn't show that we'll focus in on just a minute, there is one place about midway dead center in the bottom edge of this roof. You can see where a piece of asphalt shingling or tar shingling, you got it, Will, right above your cursor. That extends down past the edges a little bit further. If you come back just to the right, the second one in, you can see where it's kind of folded over, and I'll go into that in the pictures here. I'm just bringing it in. It's very, very subtle, but it's something that'll add a lot to your roofing. let's go over to those pictures and I'll discuss this a little bit more. On this one, if we can zoom in a little bit more. Not only is this kind of an oddball colored one, this one was with the tar paper, or excuse me, the tarring on this thing was done with the liquid leading, which I discussed earlier a little bit. So you can see a couple of places where the liquid leading was added, and we'll go through that a little bit later on. But my big point on this one that I wanted to bring up is on the bottom edge here, or the edge to the right on the roof slant. Notice that the asphalt or the rolled paper shingling actually extends over and past and over the edge and kind of folds down over the edge. And if you go up to the roof peak, notice how I used the felt tip marker to get the bleeding effect up there. So again, very, very subtle. Down on the bottom edge corner, again, the roofing, I used a little bit of a bleeding of the felt tip marker here. But my point being is, on this type of thing, number one, don't just go up to the straight edge and cut it off even there. It's often almost all of your roofing materials extend just barely past the edges of the roofs, and give some thought when you're going through what's going to happen in the natural weathering process, such as on that roof peak. And all of that stuff will combine to give you a more refined, finished product, if you will. Okay, next slide. All right, this one is of the Stanley mines up near where I used to live in Colorado, Clear Creek Canyon. But I use this picture a lot for rusting. And this is corrugated rusting, as we're all familiar with. But a couple of points I wanted to point out here just briefly. Number one, notice on the newer roofing going up, how it's rusting from the top down, which, you know, you kind of like, why is that? Well, if you stop and think about it, you're going to get water runoff coming from the top going down more. And so my point is here, if you'll notice the bottom one, the bottom section, yeah, that's it. You have virtually no rusting at that seam, whereas you have a lot up at the top edges of the seam. So that's something about rusting to consider a whole lot. This one also has a nice thing of wood right next to it. But even more than that, look at the overall roof on this slanted roof, as well as the roof angle coming down off of, I'm going to call it a cupola or something, but the angled thing. Notice it's got kind of a blue haze to it. And compared to what normally we would see on rusted corrugated siding. So the rusted corrugated siding, you've got the dark on the left side, the lighter colors on the right side of this, which that's what most people kind of get. Very few times do people go after this other hue, which is quite common, quite frankly, in the Colorado mountain areas for mines and things of that nature. So if we go to the next slide. This is a little miner shed that I did, and I've got a whole tutorial on the NewTracks website on doing this particular roofing to get this type of, I call it the blue haze look. But my point is here that you'll want to add variations to your roofs, and by using that different techniques, and applying different things, you can come up with some other weathering techniques. Also, you'll notice that I used some very light pastel applications in the second one over in the middle, or second one from the top, the big lines coming down from the top, just on the right, just about the second sheet over, you'll notice some rusting pastel. And then you'll also notice a darker rusting pastel on the bottom in the second sheet, just on the left edge of that. There's kind of a about a third to a quarter of that sheet has got that unique rusting. So my point here is that weathering, a lot of times less is more. So think about less is more always as one of those modeling mantras. We've talked about that in the introductory phases of scratch building and kind of emphasized it. This is where it comes into play. All right, and the next slide, please.
That was it.
That's it. Okay, if we can go to my desktop. And I'm sorry, yeah, over here. Okay, this one I just kind of wanted to use, and Will, if you can kind of zoom in here, hopefully I've got this set up so that you can kind of see it a little bit. This one, I mentioned gallery glass liquid leading earlier. This is nothing more than our standard roll top, just paper type of roll top added. And what I've done here in this one, to give more of a three-dimensional look, you really cannot see it that clearly here. But along this seam here, you can kind of see it. And you can kind of see it a little bit here. It sticks out a lot more around this edge here and stuff, and in real life. But that liquid leading, you can utilize to give yourself a little bit of extra three-dimensional look. This is an HO scale model. So that liquid leading can be applied in very subtle ways, excuse me, to give you additional 3D texture on your roofing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rich.
Before Rich has his little, I've got a question on that liquid leading. I've bought some and I haven't used it yet. Does it shrink when it dries?
No, it really doesn't shrink that much.
Okay.
The tricks to applying it, and that's one of the things that I'll cover probably in 1 or 2 weeks down, is to use it kind of thinned down. You have to thin it down, and then I use a sewing machine needle. And I apply that with the sewing machine needle kind of flat, and then drag it.
Okay, because before I bought some, and I haven't had a chance to use it, I had a flat roof that I did, and what I ended up doing was making a mixture of white glue and black craft paint so that it would thicken it up. But the problem I found with that is that when I applied it, it worked great, except that when it dried, it shrank. So it didn't maintain the thickness that I applied it at. In the corner where there was more of it, it shrank and kind of went into the corner. If you can understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes. And I totally understand that and get that. I have not experienced the liquid leading shrinking like that technique does.
Good.
The other thing that I utilized is the good old 5-minute epoxy. And with both the liquid leading and the 5-minute epoxies, just as they're starting to dry, but before they are thoroughly dry, if you'll use a light gray mix of pastel powders and just kind of dab it in a little bit on top of the flashing seam there, it will help add some additional texture as well as coloring to that, but that's
Yeah.
more of an advanced technique.
I was going to say with epoxy, you can tint epoxy with
Yeah, yeah.
I think
yeah,
alcohol-based tints you can use.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I concur on that. I use acrylic paints, and so yeah, it works. But you're right, you can tint it. Any other thoughts, comments, or anything on this? Go, Doug.
I've got a question. Has anybody ever used on the roofing is corrugated cardboard to represent metal?
I have, trying to think where the model is. I don't have it handy to show. And I primed it with a primer, an automotive primer on both sides to seal it. Then I came back with a light spray, and I don't recall the brand. I'm thinking it was Floqual, quite frankly, a Floqual dull silver mixed with a little bit of a gray, and I don't recall if I used a gray or they had a Gulf gray and a couple of other grays, and I don't recall the gray I used. But it was primarily a silver gray that I went over that with, and then I utilized, back then I was using just Floqual paints over that after everything had dried. Before adding the weathering though, I did cut it to size, and I don't recall what I used to cut it with. It was a little bit thick, I remember that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well, with that, Rich, I'm going to turn the show over to you, and you're going to show us what you can do in some roofing in HO scale.
Okay. Hope we can get through this without a hitch. We're all adults here. I have used about 9 types of different roofing materials. One is tar paper, and to use the tar paper, I use 2-ply facial tissue, and I rip it apart using only one tissue with glue, and I'll get into that a little later. I use the wood cedar shingles by Sierra scale models, sorry. I use board and batten. I use sand on cardboard. I use metal rib seam roofing, corrugated aluminum roofing by Campbell, slate shingles by South River Model Works, Campbell rolled shingles, which I don't really care for that much because they are on a roll and they're hard to realign back into a straight line again. I've used medicine type rolled sticky back, one-sided sticky back tape, and I'll show a picture of that later. I would just like to mention about roofing though, the first thing you see and the last thing you build. It's unfortunate that we concentrate on building our walls before we do the roof, because the roof is last and it's the first thing you see when you have visitors on your railroad. So I'm going to see if I can share a few photos here. Now, some of these models that I'm about to share, you've seen, and there are a few others that you haven't seen yet that will eventually end up in the My Build. So with that, I'm going to show the first one that I've already shown. Is this picture viewable? Yes, no?
It's not coming up here. All we're
Yeah.
seeing are the thumbnails on your
Yeah,
desktop.
yeah.
All right. I guess that was a mistake. Not now?
It's the same.
It's the same. You might have to stop your share, open it up on the desktop or open up the picture and then restart your share and show the picture.
Not there, huh? All right.
Do you want to try to, have you got the file zipped that you could forward it over to Will real quick?
Actually, Rich, when you've got, click on the first, you've got that open, click on the first picture that you want to show, then click share screen. Yeah, click on the first one. So you've got it open big somewhere on one of your screens, then click share screen. And then
Right,
when you've
just a
got the
moment.
share screen, pick the one where it shows the big picture.
All right, just a minute. Okay, and then now what? I
Now
my
click
pic-
share screen.
I
And on that one, on the choices on your share screen, it should be the first one, top left. There we
That's
go.
it.
Yes, there it is.
And then you'll
That's
have
it.
your arrows
Okay,
on
that-
the left and right to switch.
Okay, that is that one ply tissue that I told you about. And I and I went over that after I glued it with flow quill enamel paints. And then I took an X-Acto knife after it dried and I cut through it to make it look old and rain coming through. When I'm on this large screen that shows all the little thumbnails of everyone that's on the show, I can't get back to my.
No, on the big picture that you see there, move your mouse to the left in the white space on the
I
the
see
left
it.
or on the right. Yeah, then you'll get your arrows previous, and if you go on the right hand side, you'll have your next.
Okay, so this, can you see this one?
Yes.
Okay, this is the Blue Sky by Sierra West, that model that I built that I have not shown on the My Build yet. That shows the board and batten siding on the right side of that building. And the porch itself just has boards without batten. And the middle building has cedar shingles from Sierra Scale Models. And then that tar paper roof on the left has the one ply tissue. And that was applied to cardstock, not wood. Had I done that differently, I would have used the wood like I mentioned last show, because the cardstock does warp after you put glue on it. But
Yeah, I was noticing that also because the first roof I was showing today that was board and bat is of this same model. But the seam going between the wall right there where your cursor is, I also noticed that I've got a problem of other wall towards the small flat building. Yeah, that seam right there. I've noticed that I've got warping with the cardstock here and getting it to seal tightly against this. And it may just be doing to all the moves too, because the model's been through 3 different moves, but.
I believe you're right because mine warped in the center.
Okay, yes, because I'm having a problem, but my point here is that that's a fairly small roof. And had I had it to do again, I think I would go to Neil's trick of using styrene for the substock, even though Neil said he had a problem with warping. I don't think it'd be as bad as with cardstock. Anyway.
Well, moving forward, this is the Blackmar oil company that I did for you. And I used the metal seam sealing on the main structure and the little office. I used tar paper, bond paper on the tar paper wall here, roof. And then on that smaller building to the right, those are those cedar shingles. I like the fact that you can weather them before you actually get the building finished, because when I take out those cedar shingle sheets, which I'll show later, I cover them with different colored paints before I cut them. We'll get into that a little later and I'll explain that if you don't know what I am referring to. Okay. This is just an overall view of that stand on cardstock above on that Emporium Seafood building that I did. And the building, the black building roof to the left is slate roofing by Tiki. And then there's corrugated, the rusty roof is corrugated Campbell's, and then cedar shingles next to that. And that other little roof over there doesn't have anything on it right now. Those are just lines drawn to put shingles on later. And the building in the foreground is that BJ's Leatherworks that I did all cedar shingles on, and then Campbell's on the roof below that. That's the only Campbell roof that I did using the rolled Campbell shingles that actually turned out in a straight horizontal line. I have a rough time using those, and I prefer not to use them for that reason. This is BJ's Leatherworks, which I showed last week again. One of the secrets of using the Campbell shingles are that you can lift them. And I don't know if you can see that here or not, but I tried to lift them to make them look weathered and old. And this is before any weathering was done on any of these shingles, really, other than just a little bit of maybe driftwood stain or alcohol and inks before I did any other weathering to it using powders.
While you're on that roof, I'd like to bring up a point or a tip or technique. If you'll go back to that shingled roof there that you just had.
This one?
Yes. If you have a shingled roof, be they single individual shingles or kind of like a corrugated, or excuse me, a Campbell type of paper sheet, if you take a very thin black A&I stain or one that's kind of a blue black and very thin, and hold your roof up so that it's basically upside down, so that the bottom edges of the shingles, or the shingles that you, where that seam is, so that when you apply the very thin, it's It's just between a wash and a tint in your coloring there, and hold the roof so that it's upside down, basically. Then you'll get basically pooling of that tint wash along the edges, the bottom edges of the shingles. And you hold it there for a few minutes while it kind of dries. Maybe dap it just a bit with a paper towel or something to help eliminate any excess stain that or wash that you have on here. But the trick is holding it upside down so that you're getting the wash to go up against those edges, what become the bottom edges of the shingles, and it'll pronounce the shadowing effect. So
I sort of did that over here. If you can see my cursor a little bit.
yes.
Gravity is your friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Women hate it. We love it.
This is that rib seam again. I was trying to determine what color I wanted to finally keep this in this photo. This shows the top of Emporium Seafood by Fine Scale Miniatures that I scratch built. This shows sand on cardstock here. That also works too, as well as fine grit sandpaper you could glue to cardstock. There's many choices to use, but I like the fact that the sand, it just looked good to me. I didn't even color it. I just left it white.
Is that a playground sand or a builder's sand?
Well, I think it's more pool sand, tell you the truth. It's a finer grade.
Okay.
You could also use really fine sawdust that you get from like using a hand sander with a catch-all on there, the zipper bag. But I've never tried it. I wanted to sometime take some and paint it to see if I could color it to use it for scenery. This is the underside of that that one ply building that I cut through with my knife. It's just a little barn that I built. And that roof that has the tar paper on it is removable. That portico is removable from the barn itself. Okay, this was Martin's machine from South River Model Works that I scratch built. And I used South River Model Works' slate shingles on this. This building had these three main roofs and also three similar to this side is also the other side. And I just would like to say it took me a whole week to shingle this roof.
I got a quick question on the roof caps here. Are these boards, do you angle the boards with like sandpaper or anything to get a better pointed edge seam? And then once you get it, do you go back and flatten it out, or is there any special techniques that you're using on that roof peak?
You on the middle building peak or the cupolas?
The middle building, the large three sections.
Well, I'm thinking on this one, I used a piece edging of the slate shingles, so I wasn't off on my color.
Okay.
and just
How
folded
about
it
the-
over and glued it on.
Okay, how about on the previous slide? Where you had the barn? Yeah, there, you can see the roof cap or the, it's two
Oh.
boards, but did you do anything special with the boards or you just glue them together?
I just glued those together because at that time I didn't have any of that angled wood that I sent you.
Okay,
I've used that angled wood on my ice house.
all right. And Rich is talking about an angled wood. What it is a 90-degree milled angled wood.
It's from Northeastern.
Stripwood. Yeah, from Northeast Siding.
Okay, this is the red oak garage that I showed you guys a few weeks ago. This is just tar paper. I took a can of gray paint and then I speckled over another can of white, just misted it, and that's what I ended up with.
And
I probably should have used a small patch here somewhere so I could eventually do that on this roof if I wish.
one
But
thing
you also notice on the front of this portico, I bent that tar paper over the edge. I just think it looks much better. It looks like it was done like it was years ago.
yeah, that's what I was going to try to point out. So well done.
Okay, this is another model that I have constructed from Sierra West Scale Models, part of Railroad Camp. And you see the tar paper roof on the left side with my details, which are a rolled up piece of tar paper roll. I like making those. There's a couple on the dock as well, you can see there. The tires just give it an extra flare. And there are a couple patches on this one that are a little bit darker. They're hard to see here, but they're a little bit darker than the rest of the roof itself. And I think the top is tar paper as well. It's not shingles. This one is going to be part of a diorama that I haven't completed yet. But if we do get to the My Builds, I could also show this as well, if you want to see it closer. Notice how the board's broken on the corner of the doctor. Okay, this was one I showed a few weeks back. This is Shenandoah Crossing scratch build from Evergreen Scale Models. It has corrugated Campbell aluminum on the garage roof with a light rusting on it. Those are Campbell rolled roofing shingles on that stone house to the right. And then the cedar wooden shingles on the bottom porch. I just like the overall looks of different roofing on the same model, not just one type of roof on the whole model. I just think it gives it an extra flavor. Okay, now this is a scratch built of fine scale miniatures Sewell's Foundry that I have under construction currently on the railroad line forums. I have yet to do my roof on these. I just drew the lines in for the cedar shingles that I was going to put on here, but since I already started the roof using Campbells, I might take the Campbell ones off and then just do wood, but that's going to be a lot of cutting and fitting to get around the cupolas as well as that dormer. I'm not sure what I want to do with this. I thought maybe I would leave it up to you fine people and give me a suggestion on what to use. I'm thinking about this machine shop over to the left using some sort of corrugated metal, maybe tar paper on the back short roof, and then wood cedar shingles on the front. But the kit came originally with metal walls in it, and I made my own in hydrocal. And I weathered those stone. Those are stone hydrocal castings that I weathered using Floquil paints. Currently, there are no powders on that, and I hand built those freight doors myself and made the windows. And the windows above the freight door in the off the dock are just boarded up windows. They're not windows. So eventually we'll get to this, and then I could show it on the My Build.
Rich, I would suggest that in regard to the dormers and the cupolas, you have to make a decision. Are these later additions to the building, or were they put there when the building was built? I would think that if they were put there when the building was built, they would use the same kind of shingles or roofing material when they were doing the actual process of putting the roof on. But if they're later additions, you should use something different from the main roof.
I hear you, but it's still going to be a tedious process no matter what I use. What do you think, Gary?
Patience.
I'm not a doctor.
Rich, the only thing I would add, I mean, I agree with both Gary and Father Ron. The dormer, having that the roof is virtually flat, it would not have been, they wouldn't have put cedar shakes on that because it would have leaked. So
Right.
for that, because it's virtually a flat roof, I think
Tar
you have a
paper.
choice of either tar paper or corrugated metal or a seamed metal, but not shakes or not any kind of shingle. It would have leaked.
Right. Okay. I will take that into careful consideration when I complete this model.
Yeah, good spot, Will.
Okay, now if I need to share my screen again, how am I going to do that?
Just share screen.
All right, is this viewable?
Don't see anything yet.
Yeah,
All
where
right.
you, what are you gonna try to show us, Rich?
Hang on a minute.
There we go.
Something's coming.
Okay,
It's good.
these are two of those cedar shingle sheets that I bought from Sierra Scale Models. And I took a bottle of Floquil grime, and I'm going to add a little bit of that color to these sheets before I cut these. And here, can you see these now?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay, these sheets have had a little bit of that grime applied to them because it helps to weather them before you cut them, and then you make a pile of these cuttings and then pick them out at random. When you put them on the building, it helps to break up the monotony of just plain old cedar wood. I like to do this first and not cover the whole sheet as well. And then I'll take a steel straight edge in my X-Acto and cut strips. You take the strips when you're done cutting them and cut them with the scissors to make the pile that I show on the right-hand side. these are the strips. And this is the pile of cuttings after you cut through with the scissors. About, I cut them about 12 to 18 inches at random lengths to facilitate not making them all the same relative length. When you put them on the building, you can mix and match them, and it really gives the old world look. And then I'll sort the pile to see which ones are the length I want to use at that row that I'm doing. And if I grab one that's too long, I'll just take the X-Acto knife and shave a bit off of it to make it like the last one I glued. Or if I want to go with the longer one, next one, I just do that. But that's how they get applied. And I used on the roof that I was doing here, Formula 560 glue. You can use wood type bond. You can use Elmer's. I use Elmer's Extreme. I even use my CA to glue these. All they are is wood glued on whatever you're using for your subroof, whether it's cardstock, wood, or anything else, or styrene for that matter. You could probably glue those on there. They're wood glued to styrene. Now here it is showing you that building number 2 that I'm making for the ice house diorama. I told you last week that I used that 65-pound paper cardstock, and I wished I hadn't. If you look in the middle, it starts to warp. After the glue dried, it did come back some, but that's why I had to put all the extra wood pieces under my roof that I showed last week, because that cardstock is just too frail to use. You really should use wood if you're going to do this. The problem with using wood is you try to find the thinnest 1/32 sheet wood you can find, because otherwise at the peak end of your wall, you're going to have the thickness of what you use for your subroof plus the thickness of each successive row of shingles when they get glued together. So that's quite a lot of thickness to cover up. That's why I actually went with the cardstock on this versus using wood. This just shows the rows where I start the next row and then just glue across to meet the other board that I put at the other end so that my rows sort of stay horizontal. I do that on both sides of the roof as I go. I'll do one side and then the other side and then vice versa. I like to chew up the bottoms of these on the lowest row, because it looks like it either snow melted off, they got weathered. But once you add your stains and weathering powders, you can also enhance that by taking your X-Acto knife and just chopping down through the edges on those if you want to destroy it more. This was my finished roof. Even though I could have put another small line up here, I decided not to do that on this one. I took a piece of that angled northeastern angle, Chris, that we talked about earlier, and glued it to the peak of this one. You could do the same thing with 2 boards, but I used a piece of that angle instead. It just helps to sturdy that cardstock too. Now you guys can see there's no weathering on this yet. I haven't determined what I want to use, whether I want to use stains. But if I use stains, it's going to warp more. And if I use powders, it's probably my best bet, either powders or pan pastels on this, because I got that thin cardstock and not wood. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but these are the Sierra scale models, thin sheets that I buy. And I'll put in the chats in a few minutes the site that where I buy these from, and they are still available. There's also other products on there as well. So the gentleman's name that owns this company is David Barron, and he's a really nice guy. And he'll answer any questions you have regarding these shingles. You get 5 sheets per package, and they're $3.95 plus shipping per package. I have about over 100 sheets of this stuff. I really like it a lot. A lot of other people have said they used a couple other products. One was cigar wraps. I don't know where to find them. Other people have used the grilling papers that come in a package you could get at Walmart, but I have yet to see them that are similar to these shingles sheets. So since I can't find the other 2 brands, I decided to continue to purchase these until they're gone.
Rich,
Hopefully.
I find that cigar wraps are a bit difficult. They are extremely thin, but they don't uncurl very well.
And they probably split good too.
Yeah, they do. The other thing is that my friend who smokes cigars, he gets these sheets of cedar between the layers of cigars in the cigar box. He gives those to me, and they're very thin also. They're not quite as thin as the cigar wraps are, but they're very thin.
Okay, I want to just show a couple other pictures, Chris. So
Okay, before we leave here, to finish up on what Father Ron just noted, those cedar sheets, oftentimes if you go into the cigar stores, last time I was in one was in the Denver area about 5 years ago, but I just walked in and asked him for some, and he gave me a handful of them at no cost, because they're kind of trash to them. So anyway, any of you that are in a larger metropolitan area, you can probably just go down to your local cigar shop and pick some up relatively cheap. I'm sorry, go on ahead, Rich.
well, no, I'm kind of here. Can you see this?
We're seeing
Yeah.
thumbnails.
Yes.
You see my full picture, big one?
Just thumbnails.
All right. I don't know why I can't get that right. Oh, boy.
Rich, I just measured those separator sheets. They're 16 thousandths of an inch thick.
Okay. Thank you. Rich, can we go on ahead and move forward and come back to you then next week on this and wrap it up? Because it'll be a good segue into the other parts.
Yeah, that'll be all right.
Okay.
Oh, I see how to do it now. Wait a minute. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thomas Yorkie building that I did stone storefront, and I put tar paper on the top of that, and I put a few bricks falling down and some wood parts just to make it more interesting. And that's that one ply. No, that's the one-sided tape, cloth tape that I used, and this is what the inside of that building looks like. It's just wood purlins, and you can see the other side of that sticky part of the tape that attached to the wood. It works okay. It takes paints well and powders well. So I would use that as an alternative also for tar paper. And this is the one you've seen before, so I won't go into that. This is, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, this is a scratch built bolt model, waterline model that I'm currently constructing. I haven't completed it yet. I'll show it in the My Build soon. But I wanted to make mention here the tar paper on top of that roof. I really like the way it turned out, and that's that one ply tar paper that I told you guys about earlier. I really like the way it works. It really looks old. You can make it look ratty looking because I curled up the corner at the right tail end of that near the back of the boat there. You can see.
So you're just using a single ply of tissue paper with a diluted white glue
Yes, sir.
on it?
Everything you see on that boat was scratch built, except for the wood sheeting that I used for the deck. That and well, and that hole for the mast. This has been a fun build. I gonna finish this soon. And you saw this one before. I just wanted to show one other, just two other pictures from another modeler. Okay, can you see that picture?
We're just seeing thumbnails. Rich, we may have to come back
Well,
to
this
it.
thing is sensitive.
Come back to it here for next week.
All right, I'll come back next time. This is quite sensitive. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, and then if we can take one quick look at my desktop, please. Then I'm going to share my final tip of the afternoon and we'll call it a day. And what I've got here, this is just a piece of cardboard real quick, just to kind of show you guys what, but consider this cardboard right here as the roof edge, okay? And you're looking at the bottom side of your roof, all right? And consider this as shingles, the white is shingles. And so what I do is I just shingle past the edges. So I've got basically my subroof and then my roof. And then to get that even overhang always, I utilize a couple of different techniques, but basically they're one and the same. The first thing is to use a, in HO scale, I use a machinist ruler, and all I do is I hold the ruler up against the edge of the cardstock, okay, or the subroof here, so that it's up against the extended roofing, and then I'll take a just an X-Acto blade, and I just then go on ahead and on the outside, straight down, I just use a punching motion to cut the roofing material, be it a cardstock, which is paper, excuse me, a rolled paper roofing, which is paper usually, or a something like the Campbell's scale models, or even some of the other ones, papers, but this will give you a fairly straight, even edge going across the bottom on that. And then here and there, you can slip it out a little bit if you want something really extended. But my point being is that's one way to get an even edge. And using the same technique, I'm going to use an oversized drafting because you can see the color. Normally I use a clear one and a much smaller, like a 4-inch 60-90 triangle, but this will give you a little bit different thickness. And I would use that in O scale because I build in O and HO both. But, and then coming on the outside again, I would just use my knife to cut straight down. Again, be aware that you're using a blade in a manner it's not designed for. So be careful of it snapping. You don't want to set that blade into your wrist, but that's a quick way of getting that overhang, but yet it's fairly even going across, and it's just a real 5-and-dimer tip. All right, and with that, we can go back to my computer, and I will go on ahead and wrap her up and call it a day today. Any final comments, questions, any questions on YouTube land for anything that you're building on, or anything that you saw today before we go?
Nothing on YouTube.
Okay. Well, everybody, I again want to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. It's been good having you. I hope you kind of picked up a tip or two. We will next week move into putting on the standard castings that one would normally decorate a roof with, and talk about some of the various techniques and associated issues with weathering. Then we'll kind of move forward into other pieces of eye candy the following week. So in 2 weeks, we'll be covering things like water tanks and platforms and piping and some of those type of goodies. But we'll focus mostly on smokestacks and things like that, because the weathering gets a little bit more intricate and it's more common. And that's what I would consider a more of an elementary level that everybody's going to have to master at some point. So any other final thoughts, questions? Joe, did you get your pieces put back together on your ice making machine?
I did. Everything is copacetic. Did you get the drawing I sent you?
Did you send it email or?
I sent it to Jim. It's a picture of, I found a picture of that actual unit.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Yes,
Okay.
we did. Thank you very much. And Will, did we manage to get that posted onto the website?
No, not yet.
Okay. Yes.
I haven't posted. I also found some other pictures in doing some internet searching, and then I think I remembered a conversation that we had with Heath very beginning, and where Heath said that he based his 3D design on a model that was already existing, and I found pictures of this model that actually I believe it comes from the Smithsonian. And the nice thing is that the model is actually painted, so you get a better idea of what is wood and what is metal, and I'll put those on the website.
Okay, super, thank you. Yes, Joe, we did get it, and thank you very much. I was waiting for Will to get back on me on confirmation on that one. So, okay. Any final questions, comments from the gallery out there, everybody? All right.
Thank you for putting up with me.
We'll get you mastered in the high tech yet here, Rich. All right.
I want to mention in the chats, I put in the site for those shingles.
Okay, yeah, I see it here. So
for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Will, can we get that transferred over to the resources on our thing too?
Will do.
Oh, okay. Do you need to capture that before you kill everything?
I emailed it to him.
Oh, okay, cool. All right then. Well, everybody, I want to thank you for your time. Everybody have a wonderful week and happy modeling. And we'll look forward to next week and starting in on the decorations on the roofing. And please be prepped to, if you're one of the more experienced guys, to bring an example or two and your thoughts and comments on techniques that you may be utilizing. Okay, everybody, have a good week and we'll talk to you a little bit later. We'll do a post show here for just a few minutes for those that want to stick around. And with that, I'm going to